and Diddy claimed that somebody held a knife to his throat. He woke up and this guy basically had him, and he had the knife, and Diddy was at this person's mercy. Now, it's unclear what exactly happened from there. Was there a guard that came in? Did Diddy somehow fight this person off? Seems unlikely that happened. Or did the person just leave? Bottom line, this guy, at least according to people close to Diddy and Diddy himself, could have hurt him badly or even taken his life.
A man steps into a federal prison, and just like that, everything that once shielded him disappears. His freedom is gone, of course, but it goes deeper than that. His safety, his sense of control, even the basic belief that someone will keep him from serious harm all vanish in an instant. Sean Combs has been locked up for over a year now, and during that time, things reportedly got real dangerous. His own attorney stood in court and told a judge that another inmate rushed him with a shiv. Guards had to jump in fast to stop it. According to Brian Steele, the guy was right on top of him, seconds away from cutting him. That is not rumor or street talk. That was stated clearly in court while a judge was deciding his sentence. So really take a second and picture that. A man who once commanded entire rooms, who had people moving at his signal, now has no control over whether he wakes up safe or with a blade inches from his throat. And the same system that put him behind those walls still cannot guarantee it will not happen again. The story starts getting real messy the second you look closer at that alleged knife incident. Because now, there are two totally different versions being pushed. On one side, Combs' longtime friend Charlucci Finney told the Daily Mail that the attacker actually held a blade right up to Combs' throat while he was sleeping, claiming it could have been over in a second if things went left. Finney painted it like a straight-up warning, almost like a near throat-slashing situation. But then another voice steps in and flips the whole story. Raymond Castillo, who shared a cell with Combs at Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center, told that same outlet something completely different. According to Castillo, it all started over something small, a chair. He said another inmate kept pressing Combs, trying to scare him into giving up his seat, but Combs did not move. The guy walked off, came back holding a homemade shiv, and Castillo claims he jumped in between them and grabbed the man's hand before it got worse. In that version, there was no blade at the throat, no moment where everything almost ended. Just a tense prison argument that spiraled out of control when someone took it too far. Same place, same moment, but two versions that just do not line up at all. Both stories cannot be true in the same way, and that is where things start to feel off. The only thing they seem to agree on is this. Someone came at Combs with a weapon, and the prison failed to stop it before it got that far. So now the real question hits. What are we supposed to believe? Because the answer completely changes how serious this situation really is. If Finney's version is the truth, then Combs went through something that sounds dangerously close to a targeted attack, and calling it a warning makes it feel like someone inside could try again at any moment. But if Castillo is the one telling it straight, then it still looks bad, just in a different way. In that version, it was not some planned move. It was a random clash that got heated fast and turned risky because someone lost control. Still scary, just not calculated in the same way. And that is the problem. There is no clear answer. Every time the situation starts to make sense, a new detail pops up and throws everything back into confusion, keeping the whole story unstable and hard to pin down. Now shift to what can actually be confirmed, because not everything here is up for debate. The Bureau of Prisons did verify that Combs was moved to FCY Fort Dix in New Jersey, which is a lower security facility. And recently he was seen out in the yard with a full gray beard, looking noticeably worn down, like someone who has been through serious pressure. His legal team pushed hard for that transfer, saying he needed access to a substance abuse program and more chances to see family. That part is clear and easy to follow. But the real push behind that move traces back to his time at MDC Brooklyn, where his defense attorneys painted a brutal picture of the conditions. According to Brian Steele, the environment there was rough. Claims of polluted water, terrible food to the point where Combs was mostly eating chips, constant noise with inmates yelling all night, and barely getting 2 hours of sleep if things were good. Those details are intense, no question, and they were laid out in court to show just how bad things had gotten. But this is where things need a closer look. A defense attorney's role is to push hard for their client and highlight the worst parts of the situation. So, when Steele describes nonstop screaming and almost no sleep, that should be understood as a claim made to support Combs, not a fully neutral, independently confirmed report. At the same time, there are facts about MDC Brooklyn that do not come from any defense team, and that is where things get even more serious. The Bureau of Prisons actually launched an interagency investigation into the facility in October 2025. On top of that, the Associated Press reported that staffing levels had dropped so badly that vacancies hit around 55% at one point. And it does not stop there. At least 6 staff members have been charged with crimes over the past 5 years, including bribery and smuggling contraband into the jail. These are not dramatic courtroom claims or emotional arguments. These are federal-level issues that point to real problems inside that facility. So even if some of Steele's statements were pushed hard to make an impact, the bigger picture still stands strong. Combs was being held in a place that the government itself has admitted was struggling, understaffed, and poorly managed, which raises serious concerns about overall safety. Then the focus shifts to his mental state, and this is where everything starts to feel shaky. The Daily Mail reported, citing an unnamed source, that Combs had a breakdown during the holidays while in his cell, reportedly begging guards to take him to a hospital, only to be denied. That same source claimed he eventually managed to calm himself down through meditation, taking hours of deep breathing to steady himself and get back under control. It is a very detailed claim, but almost instantly, another unnamed source came in and flipped the whole narrative. That second source told the same outlet that Combs was actually holding it together, saying he missed his family deeply over Christmas but was not breaking down at all. Now, you have 2 anonymous voices telling 2 completely different stories about the same man, and there is no real way for the public to confirm which one is real. Former federal prosecutor Naima Rahmani even weighed in, telling the Daily Mail that she believes the meltdown report makes sense. She argued that someone who lived a life of wealth and comfort and is not a hardened criminal would naturally struggle under the pressure of spending the holidays locked up in a federal prison. That perspective sounds logical, but it is still just an opinion, not a confirmed fact. The other side is just as possible. Combs has spent years in an industry where pressure is constant, where staying in control and pushing through tough situations is part of the game. And those instincts do not just disappear overnight because of prison. So now the picture splits again. Is he falling apart behind those walls, or is he staying mentally strong despite everything closing in on him? Right now, there is no clear answer, and that uncertainty keeps the story wide open. The story keeps getting pulled in 2 completely different directions, and it does not settle down. What is clear is that concerns about his mental state did not just appear out of nowhere. When Combs first arrived at MDC Brooklyn in September 2024, the Bureau of Prisons placed him under close monitoring, which is standard for high-profile new arrivals. People magazine confirmed this, reporting that his mental condition was uncertain at the time and that he seemed to be in shock. But then his attorney, Mark Affilo, stepped in fast and shut that idea down. He told TMZ that Combs was not in distress at all, describing him as strong, healthy, confident, and fully locked in on his defense. That right there created the first major split in the narrative. 2 real accounts, both out in public, pointing in totally different directions. And that back and forth has only grown louder now that he is actually serving time instead of waiting for trial. Every time the story starts leaning towards sympathy, it suddenly shifts again. Because while some reports paint a picture of a man barely holding it together, federal prosecutors are pushing a very different image entirely, and that contrast keeps the tension high. According to court filings reported by Page 6 and other outlets, prosecutors are painting a very different picture of what has been going on behind those walls. They claim Combs broke jail rules by using phone accounts linked to at least 8 other inmates to get around monitoring. On top of that, they say he tried to contact potential witnesses directly, set up 3-way calls to hide who he was really speaking to, and even tracked social media activity from his cell to see if his family's birthday posts were landing the way he wanted with potential jurors. That does not come off like someone who has completely fallen apart. If anything, it sounds like someone who still believes he has influence and is trying to move pieces from inside a federal detention center, which raises serious questions about how much control he still thinks he has. Prosecutors pushed even further with those claims, alleging that Combs attempted to improperly influence witnesses and members of the jury pool, aiming to pressure people into staying quiet or giving statements that would help his defense. These are still allegations, not confirmed facts, but they are not coming from random anonymous sources either, which makes them hard to ignore. These claims did not come from random chatter. They were laid out by federal prosecutors in official court documents, and they clash hard with the image of a man completely overwhelmed and shut down on a steel bed. So who is really inside that cell right now? Is it the version people describe, the man who turns to meditation to get through a holiday breakdown, who gets emotional during sentencing, apologizes to his children, and tells the judge he has been stripped down to nothing? That image feels raw and human, no doubt about it. Or is it the version prosecutors are pushing, the one who is watching analytics, using other inmates' phone accounts, and still trying to move pieces behind the scenes from inside a federal facility? Because that picture shows someone who has not let go of control at all. The truth might be uncomfortable, but it could be both at once. A person can break down and still keep pushing forward. Someone can show emotion in court, speak to their family, and still make calculated moves under pressure. People are not one simple thing, especially in high-stress situations like this. And right now, Combs seems to be caught in that exact contradiction, with each report revealing a different side of the same unstable reality. Then on top of all that, the legal chaos kicks in. And that is where things really start to tighten up. On April 9th this year, things took a serious turn when a 3-judge panel from the Second Circuit Court of Appeals heard arguments in Manhattan over whether Combs' 50-month sentence went too far. This was not just routine, it had real weight behind it. His attorney, Alexandra Shapiro, came in strong, arguing that the judge relied on conduct the jury had already cleared him of, and that Combs ended up with the longest sentence ever handed down to someone convicted on similar charges with a comparable record. That is a bold claim, and it puts the entire sentencing under a harsh spotlight. Then Assistant U.S. Attorney Christy Slavic fired back, saying the sentence was actually lighter than what federal guidelines recommend. Up to that moment, it sounded like a standard legal clash. Defense pushing one way, prosecution pushing the other. But then things shifted. Circuit Judge William J. Nardini stepped in and called it an exceptionally difficult case, pointing out that it raises questions of first impression, not just for that court, but for any federal court across the country. And just like that, the stakes felt a whole lot bigger. That kind of language is not what you hear when judges are ready to shut something down fast. It signals that they are seriously struggling with a legal issue that does not fit neatly into the rules already in place. They even questioned whether 50 months might be too harsh. But here is the key part. They did not make a decision right there in court. And even now, there is still no ruling. That leaves his legal future wide open, unsettled, and capable of shifting in a major way depending on what that panel decides. That kind of uncertainty is huge because the possible outcomes look completely different from each other. If the appeals court sides with him, Combs could see his sentence reduced or in a more dramatic turn, possibly even walk free sooner than expected depending on how far the judges go. But if the court backs the original decision, then he stays at Fort Dix until at least May 2028, assuming he keeps good behavior. And here is where it gets even more complicated. Getting out would not suddenly fix everything. It would mean stepping straight into another storm, more than 100 civil lawsuits waiting on the outside. That number comes from attorney Tony Busby, who has publicly stated he represents over 120 accusers, which adds a whole new layer of pressure to an already intense situation. Some of those allegations go beyond anything the criminal case ever even touched, which adds another layer to an already complicated situation. And staying locked up means remaining inside a prison system that has already shown it could not fully protect him, while also being under federal scrutiny for violence, staffing shortages, and conditions serious enough to trigger an interagency investigation. That investigation is not speculation. It is confirmed. The Bureau of Prisons acknowledged it directly. Over the past 5 years, at least 6 staff members have been charged with crimes, and staffing levels once dropped to around 55% vacancies before emergency hiring pushed the workforce up to 469 employees. At the same time, the inmate population decreased from roughly 1,600 to about 1,200. These are not claims from a legal team trying to win sympathy. These are facts coming straight from the federal system itself. What that shows is hard to ignore. One of the government's own facilities has been dealing with serious issues, and Combs just happens to be the most high-profile person caught inside that environment. So this is where everything stands right now. A man who has already faced danger in a place meant to keep him secure, a mental state that some describe as unstable, while others say he is holding firm, and an appeal that could drop at any moment and completely reshape his future in a matter of hours. The attack itself is not really in question. but the details are all over the place. One version says it was close to something far worse, while another tones it down to a heated moment that got out of control. The meltdown story came out strong, then got pushed back just as fast. At the same time, he can be seen as someone caught in a broken system, and also as someone prosecutors believe never stopped trying to stay in control of everything around him. And that is what stands out the most, how little of this is actually settled. Every angle seems to come with a counter. Every claim gets challenged, and the full picture just never locks into place. Meanwhile, there is still a court decision hanging out there, waiting to drop. And when it does, it could shift everything all at once. But here is where things take an even stranger turn. It might not be the knife incident or even the meltdown reports that stand out the most. It is what prosecutors claim he was doing quietly from inside that cell, while everyone else was arguing over whether he was safe, steady, or slipping. According to court filings reported by multiple outlets, prosecutors say Combs used phone accounts tied to at least 8 different inmates to make calls that were harder for the prison to track. 8 separate accounts. That does not come off as random. That feels organized, thought out, and deliberate, and it only makes the situation more intense. Prosecutors say he was even tracking social media analytics from inside his cell after his family posted a birthday video, watching how people reacted to it and whether it was reaching potential jurors the way he wanted. A birthday video. To most people, it looked like a simple, heartfelt family moment. But according to federal prosecutors, they viewed it as something much more calculated, part of a strategy being carried out from inside a detention center. Now, it is important to slow this down and be clear about what this actually is. These are allegations, not proven facts. The prosecution has not secured a conviction on obstruction, and Combs has not been found guilty of anything beyond the original Mann Act-related charges. But at the same time, these are not random rumors floating around online. These are specific claims that federal prosecutors included in official court filings, presented to a judge while arguing that Combs should not receive bail or any leniency. That gives them a different level of weight and seriousness. The pattern they are describing does not point to someone who has completely lost control. It suggests someone who may still be trying to influence what is happening on the outside, even while being held in a place where his power is supposed to be extremely limited. And that contrast keeps raising more questions, and the timeline only makes everything feel more uncomfortable. Prosecutors claim he started breaking rules almost right after arriving at MDC Brooklyn, before the trial even began, before any verdict was reached, before that 50-month sentence was handed down. This was during the period when he was supposed to be in shock, adjusting to prison life and facing the possibility of spending the rest of his life behind bars. That completely shifts how those early days look. So now the question hits again. What version are we supposed to believe? On one side, the defense paints a picture of a man falling apart, hearing constant screaming through the night, barely sleeping more than 2 hours, and surviving on chips just to get by. On the other side, prosecutors describe someone very different. A calculated thinker, already working out how to move around the phone system, stay connected, and potentially influence a jury pool from the inside. Those two images do not sit well together at all, yet both come from official sources, not random talk. And that clash between two serious but completely different portrayals is exactly why this whole situation feels so hard to figure out. When the public cannot clearly see who is really inside that cell, it becomes almost impossible to predict what comes next. The legal side of this gets just as strange, and it actually explains why nothing has fully settled yet. When the jury convicted Combs on July 2nd, 2025, they made a decision that really stands out. They cleared him of racketeering and sex trafficking charges, the ones that could have put him away for life. But at the same time, they found him guilty on 2 Mann Act counts, the transportation-related charges. So he avoided the charges that could have ended everything, yet still ended up behind bars on others. That split outcome already made the case feel complicated from the start. Then came the sentencing, and even that did not land cleanly. Prosecutors pushed for 11 years, while the defense argued for just 14 months. Judge Subramanian came in the middle with 50 months, just over 4 years, and that number did not sit well with either side. The prosecution saw it as too light, the defense called it too harsh, and when both sides walk away unhappy, the fight usually does not stop there. It almost guarantees the battle continues, and that is exactly what happened here. Now that fight has moved to the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, where judges have already hinted that this case raises issues that do not fit neatly into the usual legal categories, which keeps everything uncertain and far from over. During oral arguments on April 9th, Circuit Judge William J. Nardini did not hold back when describing what he was looking at. He called it an exceptionally difficult case and said it raises questions of first impression, not just for that court, but for any federal court in the country. That is not the kind of language judges throw around casually. You usually hear that when the law does not have a clear answer and the panel is stepping into uncertain territory. At the center of Combs' appeal is a serious argument. His legal team claims the judge relied on conduct the jury had already cleared him of, and that his sentence was influenced by accusations tied to behavior he was found not guilty of. That is a big deal, because it challenges how the sentence was even built in the first place. On the other side, the government is pushing back just as hard. They argue that judges are allowed to look at the full scope of a defendant's conduct during sentencing, even if some of that conduct did not lead to a conviction. That position also has legal backing, which is why this fight is not simple at all. Both sides are standing on real legal ground, and that is exactly why this appeal carries so much weight. This is not just routine, it is a pressure point that could shift how cases like this are handled moving forward. And stepping back for a second, the criminal case was never going to be the final chapter here. Attorney Tony Buzbee even held a press conference claiming he represents more than 120 accusers, which adds an entirely new layer to everything already unfolding. 120. That number alone hits hard and gives a clear sense of just how big this situation could still become. Some of those lawsuits were filed under the Gender-Motivated Violence Act, a New York law that briefly opened the door for older claims to be brought forward. That window has now closed, but not before a wave of cases rushed into the system. And inside those filings are claims that the criminal trial never even addressed. Attorney Tony Buzbee stood in front of cameras and made it clear, saying this was only the beginning. The criminal case may have put Combs behind bars, but the civil cases could keep him locked into legal battles for years even after he gets out. That reality changes everything depending on what happens next. If the appeal works in his favor and his sentence is reduced or he is released, he does not step into freedom. He steps straight into more than 120 lawsuits. That means depositions, trials, possible settlements, public testimony, non-stop headlines, and more people coming forward. It becomes a different kind of courtroom pressure with a lower burden of proof. And if the appeal does not go his way, then he remains behind bars until at least May 2028, assuming good behavior, while all of this continues building on the outside, waiting for him. But the civil cases are not just going to sit back and wait for him to walk free. They can keep moving forward without him. Depositions can still happen while he is locked up. Testimony can be recorded, and witnesses can speak their truth whether he is physically there or not. There is no path where he simply returns to the life he had before. That version is already gone. A major turning point came when that hotel video aired on CNN. From that moment on, everything shifted, and there was no going back to how things used to be. Then there is the rumor that just refuses to fade, no matter how many times it gets denied. TMZ reported that a high-ranking White House official claimed Donald Trump was going back and forth on the idea of commuting Combs' sentence, even while staff members were reportedly advising against it. That same report also claimed Combs had been telling other inmates at Fort Dix that Trump would pardon him in 2026, even saying he would look out for them once he got out. Talk like that spreads fast inside prison walls, especially when it involves something as serious as a presidential pardon. But almost immediately, another White House official pushed back hard, telling Us Weekly there was zero truth to those claims, making it clear that the president, not anonymous sources, is the one who makes the final call, and just like everything else in this story, it leaves things uncertain and hard to pin down. So now everything feels split again. One official hints there might be some movement, another shuts it down completely, and on top of that, Combs is allegedly telling inmates that help is on the way. That mix alone keeps the rumors alive and spinning. What makes it even stranger is that Trump had already spoken about Combs back in August before all the pardon talk really picked up. In an interview with Newsmax, he said Combs was sort of half innocent, questioned why he was still in jail, and also pointed out that Combs had been hostile toward him during the campaign, which he admitted made things more complicated. That is a wild statement to put out publicly. It basically suggests that personal history could play a role, which is not something you usually hear said so directly. It does not sound like someone ready to sign off on a pardon right away. Instead, it comes across more like someone keeping the door slightly open without making any promises. Then another layer gets added. A source close to the White House told a media outlet that granting a pardon would be politically damaging for Trump with his supporters, calling it a long shot from the start. But here's the catch. A long shot is not the same as a firm no. And as long as that door is even a little bit open, the speculation is not going anywhere. It is going to keep circulating, growing, and pulling more attention into an already unpredictable situation. A presidential pardon would not just cut down the sentence, it would erase the federal conviction completely. That means Combs would walk out of Fort Dix with a clean federal record, at least on paper. But the civil lawsuits, those do not disappear. A pardon does not protect against civil liability, so all those cases would still be waiting for him on the outside. Think about how big that shift would be. No more Bureau of Prisons release date hanging over him, no more appeal fights over the sentence, no supervised release. Just like that, the criminal case would be wiped away with a single decision from the White House. That is what makes this whole situation so unpredictable. You can try to break down what the appeals court might do, analyze every legal angle, but a political move like that could override everything in an instant. And if the claims are true that Combs has been talking about it inside Fort Dix, that suggests at least some people around him believe it is actually possible, no matter how strongly officials deny it in public. So when you step back and look at everything together, it becomes even more intense. A criminal case that ended with a result nobody fully accepted, and now an appeal hanging in the balance, with federal judges openly admitting this case raises brand new legal questions that do not have easy answers. The civil side is already huge, with more than 120 accusers and the real chance of years stuck in court battles ahead. The pardon rumor is still alive, and the one person who could actually make it happen has already said just enough in public to keep people guessing and talking. And under all of that noise, the same questions are still sitting there, unanswered. Questions about Combs' safety, his mental state, and whether the system around him can really control what is happening inside those walls. Those questions did not disappear. They just got buried under more chaos and confusion. So here is where everything stands right now. The man at the center of it all does not have a clear way out. If the appeal works and he walks free, those civil cases are already lined up and waiting for him. If the appeal fails, he stays inside a system that has already shown it cannot fully guarantee his safety. And if a pardon somehow happens, it might wipe out the conviction on paper, but it cannot erase everything else. The public record, the hotel video, the testimony, or those 120 lawsuits still hanging over him. And that shift could come fast with no warning at all. One ruling, one update, and suddenly everything people thought they understood gets flipped upside down. Because this situation is not running on a steady path, it is moving in sharp turns.
Prosecutors, on the other hand, said Diddy was not sorry and that his apology was phony and that there was some serious harm done to the victims of this case. Like you said, they wanted a sentence of at least 11 years. Ultimately, we know a sentence has now been shared with the court of 4 years behind bars for Sean Diddy Combs.
That fight is now in front of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals, where the judges have already suggested that something about this case does not fit neatly into the usual legal boxes. During oral arguments on April 9th, Circuit Judge William J. Nardini called it an exceptionally difficult case that raises questions of first impression not only for this court, but for any federal court in the country. That is not everyday language from a judge. You usually hear something like that when the panel is dealing with an issue the law has not clearly answered yet. The core of Combs' appeal is that the judge improperly considered conduct the jury had already